Yo, what's up everybody, Fortnitron here, and today we're going to be talking about my experience playing the Elden Ring Nightreign Network test. Let's get into it. Okay, so I want to start off by saying the network test was awesome. I had a bunch of fun. What I really want to get into with this video is just a lot of the misconception that a lot of people have been having. I want to speak specifically about Luke Stevens and his recent video. I like Luke Stevens. I think he makes excellent top tier content. I feel like his opinion on Souls games though is a little bit lacking, and let's get into this just right away. So for those of you who don't know, Elden Ring Nightreign it's a new multiplayer game. It's a roguelike with Elden Ring mechanics. So if you've ever played a game like Vampire Survivors or Returnal, I love Returnal. It's exactly like that, but with Elden Ring. So the whole point of this game is a co-op experience in From Software format, but it's condensed. And how they've done that is you are loaded onto a map with two other players, and the map gradually closes with the night rain, and the goal during your gameplay is to kill as many mobs as you possibly can, sometimes killing mini bosses, so you can get level ups and different equipment, so then you can finally fight the end of the night end boss. So each day there's 3-day cycles, and the first 2 days have a daytime cycle, and then there's the nighttime cycle where you fight off against the boss. And it's a really cool, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Like, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. And what I find kind of ridiculous or kind of funny is that there have been a ton of players who I think maybe have just been introduced to From Software games through Elden Ring. And again, nothing wrong with that. But they're kind of like ignoring everything, and they're just like expecting this to be an Elden Ring sequel, which it's not. This is an offshoot game. And they're getting let down by something that this game has never said that it's trying to be or ever going to be, which I think is just stupid. So a lot of people I even encountered while my playtime were playing this like it was Elden Ring, and it's not. So just to give you a little bit of a backstory, this is a network test. And if you're new to the game, the network test is a small piece. It's a small chunk so players can get an idea of what the gameplay is going to be, but it's mostly for From Software to test their servers. It's for them to test functionality of the game to make sure that their servers are going to be ready day one for the huge influx of players. And that's all it is. It's not there for players to experience the full game or like see what the full game is like. It's not like a preview or like an early access. It is a small piece just to stress test their network servers. That's all it is. So it was never meant to be a showcase for all of the content in this game. And it just blows my mind. I'm just like, did you not play the Elden Ring Network test? Have you ever played any other From Software Network test? Like, the Elden Ring Network test was also just Limgrave. It was a small chunk of Limgrave, and they walled off the rest of Limgrave. Like, you couldn't even go far to the east, like on your way to Caelid. You couldn't go to the Weeping Peninsula. You couldn't even go past Stormvale. Like, that was the end of the network test, was where after you beat Margit the Fell. And that was it. So it was just a small chunk of Limgrave. This is the same thing. Like, I already see idiots, just morons, complete dummies who like don't know anything about these games being like, I was a little let down about the content, like the lack of content. I'm worried about the lack of content. But it's like, bro, the network test, it's not meant to be a full showpiece for all of the game's content. I would be very, 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 very surprised if there isn't a lot of diversity in the kind of arenas that you load into when the full game comes out. And they've even shown in like the trailer, like there's different areas. And some people are like, oh, is it just gonna be like Limgrave with some of these aspects? No, I'm fully expecting there to be like a Caelid zone or like a Liurnia zone or an Atlas Plateau zone. Like, there is gonna be diversity. And a lot of people be like, it was like a lot of the same stuff that was like in the base game. Yeah, dude, like they're just remixing it. You're gonna see a lot of the same stuff, but I have no From Software is going to deliver. They're going to throw in some new stuff. Like the final boss of this network test is a new boss, and even the bosses that they reuse, like Morgoth's in there, the centipede demons in there, and the tree sentinel's back, but it's the draconic tree sentinel. They have like their same movesets, but they have altered movesets as well, and they have like new shit that they do. So they do spice it up a little bit, but again, this is just a small network piece. So I'm just tired of hearing all the fucking dummies talk about like the lack of content. It's like, dude, this was not an early access preview. That's not what it was. It was just a stress test for the servers, for the network. And a lot of people were like, yeah, like I've been hearing like, and I heard this on Luke Stevens' video as well, but I've been hearing it elsewhere, like people talk about the net code. It's like, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you know what you're talking about, the net code. Idiot. It's like the first night, because there was such a huge influx of people who were doing the network test, the PSN servers shit the bed. So people who were playing on the Xbox, because you could either play on Xbox Series consoles or PlayStation 5, people playing on Xbox were perfectly fine, hilarious enough, because that sample size is a lot smaller. But because the PS5 network test audience was a lot bigger, the first network test time, complete write-off. Like nobody could get in. I got in for one match, played with some idiots, and then got kicked out, and that was it. But that's what this is for. This is a network test for a reason. It's for them to stress test and see like, okay, now we learned that broke it. And they found a lot. What broke the initial network test was the password matchmaking. So for the majority, I think for a lot of the other times, you could not use password matchmaking. So you couldn't like team up with your friends who had the same password as you. You just had to play with randoms. And I'm going to move this on to my experience. So like, I want to talk a little bit more about that later, but this is more about my experience. So my experience with the game was, again, it was everything that I wanted it to be. It was a condensed Elden Ring experience where like I didn't have to play through the base game. It was just like something fresh, something new, something cool. If you're familiar with the mechanics, which you should be if you are a From Software fan, you've played more than one of their games, then you will love this because it's all about making quick decisions. It's all about finding your build and maximizing your build's DPS. And yeah, that means you got to make decisions on the fly. So you'll get randomized loot, and then you ask yourself, okay, do I want the weapon that's got like better guard breaking chance, or do I want the weapon that's got the bleed proc? It's like, yeah, you're gonna choose the bleed proc. I don't know. Or maybe if your build is all about breaking guard or like doing riposts, then you're gonna pick that weapon. Whatever your play style is, right? So you're gonna make quick decisions like that. And I love that. I love that it added a level of intensity. You have to make quick decisions on the fly. I even love, like Luke Steve was talking about, like, oh, like I didn't like having to be rushed through a boss fight, like through a dragon fight, because that's what Souls games is all about. It's all about like going through like a long fight with the boss. And it's like, what Souls games have you been playing? Like that, like maybe if you're talking about Dark Souls 1, but there's been a lot of games since then, and they're not about that. It's like, yeah, you learn the movesets, but you should have a competent build before you go into a boss fight. So unless you're like doing a challenge run where you're doing like a SL1 run or a rune level 1 run, and you're choosing to not level up your weapon, yeah, fucking boss fights are going to take you a long ass time because your damage is going to be dog shit. But through the game, like it's really easy. In a lot of the games, like I'm talking all of them, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, well, not really Sekiro, but Elden Ring, Demon Souls, it's really easy to go out and find like a min-max build and really up the output of your damage. And so that way, whenever you're walking into a boss fight, you're doing big time damage and you're able to clear that boss in like under a minute. And like there's lots of builds where you can like one-shot bosses. So this whole like talk about like the whole point of Souls games is like having like these really long drawn out fights with the bosses. To me, that sounds like you don't play these games. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, are you talking about Monster Hunter? Like that sounds like Monster Hunter to me. That's not Elden Ring, bitch. So that part confused me. So you can go through Nightreign and you can have bad runs where you get dog shit RNG. I got plenty of that. or you can have solid runs. Like this is my winning run that I'm showing in the gameplay here, where I got some really good weapons and I got a really awesome bleed weapon and I fucking crushed with that. And my team had good weapons and we were able to just rock through our playthrough because we were utilizing the mechanics. It's funny in the gameplay that I'm gonna be showing here, I don't want to like shit on anybody, but I'm pretty sure whoever was playing as the Guardian was not using their alts. They were not using their, because I don't see them use their alts a single time. Maybe we'll catch, if you guys can catch it, but I did not see them use their alts a single time. And I was playing as the Duchess, so her alt is the one alt, it like replays the recent damage that you've been doing. So whenever I saw the Wilder use his alt, I would make sure that I used my alt right away to repeat his damage. And that worked out well. But the person playing Guardian, I didn't see them use their alts a single time. So it just goes to show you that people were still learning the mechanics. I feel like that's pretty glaring to like not be using the in-game mechanics, or I don't know, purposefully ignoring them. But the game is all about making quick decisions. So the whole like feeling rushed to beat bosses is like, shut the hell up. Like this is not Elden Ring. And a lot of people need to get that through their head. This is not Elden Ring. This game is not about exploration. It is not about lore. It's not like a continuation of the Elden Ring story. It's just not. There's going to be like little Easter eggs. Of course, it's a From Software game. They're going to have little mentions, little Easter eggs. They might have like little story elements, but treat it like, what's a good example? Treat it like the Dragon Ball Z movies versus the series. Like, it's the same characters, the same stuff, but the story has nothing to do with the mainline story. It's just like an offshoot. It's its own thing. And that's what Nightreign is. And I love that. Like, I don't need it to be a continuation of the Elden Ring story. I swear I saw somewhere, I don't think it was Luke Stevens, it could have even been Maximilian, dude. I don't know who said this, but someone was like, I want to know why, like, I'm fighting these characters. I want to know why, like, I'm fighting these bosses. Like, I need that. It's like, shut up, dude. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is like, do you play Vampire Survivors and you're like, I need to know why I'm killing these vampires. Like, I need to know why I'm killing all these bats. Like, no, like that's not that type of game. It's not for you. If you need that type of motivation, don't play it. This game is a lot of fun. It's going to be totally kick-ass. It really is awesome when you're playing with a group of people that you are coordinated with. So if you can matchmake with some people and then you can talk with them over voice chat, that's the way to go. Because I gotta say, one of the things that I have to complain about this game is when you're playing with randoms, it can really suck ass. It can really suck ass, especially if you're playing with those idiots like the Luke Stevens out there who are like fucking walking around, looking at environments, or just like not using their alts, or just not using the mechanics of the game. And you're like, hurry the fuck up. Like, we gotta go. Like, we gotta kill more stuff. We gotta get more powerful. We gotta find more loot. We gotta like do all this. And they're just not doing it. And I get it. Like, a lot of people were learning the game and I understand that, but I don't know, like, it really can suck ass if you're playing with some people that suck. So I've never played Marvel Rivals, but now I'm starting to have empathy for the people that are like, man, I got teamed up with some bullshit players on Marvel Rivals. I'm like, I feel like I know where you're coming from now. But yeah, like, so playing with randoms sucks ass. And then like, I was like, I don't even know if I want to continue playing through the network test if I have to keep playing with. But lucky enough, on this run that I'm showing gameplay of, I got a good group of people who knew what they were doing. One dude was just putting plot points on the map, and I was like, okay, you could just be team leader. I'll let you do that, and I'll follow you. I'll make sure I back you up. I'll make sure that I revive you when you need it. And yeah, like, just being a good team dynamic. Some of the things that I have personal complaints about is, and this could be controversial, I don't like in this game how the loot is shared. So what I mean by that is, if you open a chest and loot comes out, it is shared amongst the three of you. So if some dick runs ahead of the group and then just opens a bunch of chests, they can take all the good items. Whether or not they are good for their build or not, they can just go and take all the stuff and then just leave you with the shit. Like, you know, when you're playing multiplayer with a friend and then they just like make you have all the dog shit items, or like they take all the good stuff. It's exactly like that, and it sucks. So I kind of wish that the loot was individual per person. When you beat mini bosses in this game, there's like this purple cloud that you go to, and it does give you designated items per person. So like you go and you make a choice and you get to pick one out of the 3 items, and each person gets to do that. So if I pick one of the items, it doesn't mean that the next person only gets to choose from the leftover 2. They get their own 3 items that they get to choose from. And I just wish it was more like that for all of the loot in the game. But that could just be me. But that was just one thing. And I agree with some other people's feedback, is that I feel like when you're in the rain doesn't like immediately kill you. It just like slowly drains your HP. So you could be fighting a boss and the rain could come, and you got to make that call. Like, you're like, can we kill this boss in a timely manner? If we can, like the runes from it like could be super helpful. But you could find that the time that it took you to kill that boss, now the rain is so far ahead of you, and you could be like out of flasks, and then you got to run to the nearest site of grace. But the ones that have been consumed by the rain cloud don't work anymore. So you got to like run even further. So like you really got to make those calls on the fly. But I do think that like the rain could be could do a little bit more damage, I find. But other than that, I loved it. I thought it was great. And like the fact that like they're bringing back like older bosses like the centipede demon and like shit like that, it's cool. It's just like a cool reuse of assets. They give them a couple of new moves. I love it. I'm all for it. And it just shows me that they have that huge of a well of bosses and enemies to pull from, that they could just infinitely be like making new content for this to kind of tide us over till their next game. So there's not like a huge 3-year gap of nothing like there was for when Elden Ring came out. Another thing that I want to bring up that I've seen some people talk about is the whole like deluxe edition, and it includes DLC, and people are like, oh, what a cash grab from Software. And it's really disappointing, like the reading comprehension that a large majority of people don't seem to have. And if they looked at the text closely, when you purchase the deluxe edition, which has been available for every From Software game, the deluxe edition usually gives you like the art book, the soundtrack, and maybe a couple items that you can get in the game. But this time around, it's all of those things, but it also says that you will get access to DLC. And people interpreted that as that people who get the deluxe edition will be able to get characters and fight bosses that won't be available in the base game. So like, if you have the deluxe edition and you bought the standard edition, people of the deluxe edition will get more content than the people of the standard edition. That's not the case. What that is when you buy the deluxe edition now in the pre-order, when future DLC comes out for Elden Ring Nightreign, you will immediately get that. You won't have to pay extra for that. It's just included as part of your deluxe edition. And some person like made a comment on my channel, and they're like, yeah, you don't get it for free. You're paying for the deluxe edition. It's like, I know that. Like, I know that. Like, that's just a syntax with the way that I typed it out. Like, I didn't mean that you're getting it literally for free. I meant as paying for the deluxe edition. You do not have to pay extra for any future DLCs. They're going to just give that to you since you were a person who bought the deluxe edition. And for me, that's perfectly fine. I think that's a great deal, because usually when you pay for the deluxe edition, you're just getting the art book and maybe the soundtrack, and that's it. So they're not like charging egregious amounts for the deluxe edition. Plus, this game's half off. Like, this game's $40. So like, it's already a reduced game, because they know it's not like a full game experience, but I think it's totally worth it. It's gonna be like hours and hours of awesome playtime, and I'm just really excited for it. So again, my experience with the network test, I had a great time. This game is far better with people that are competent, or like a group of friends that you have that you can partner up with and coordinate with. I'm really interested to see how the solo experience is going to be, if it's going to be like incredibly hard, or if they're going to give you access to like phantoms or something, or like maybe like a mimic tier. Hopefully that would be dope. That's going to be really interesting to see. But as far as like the content, the gameplay loop, I thought it was all fantastic. It's just remixed Elden Ring, which I loved. And I thought the classes were really great. The Duchess was my favorite to play by far. I like Wilder and Guardian were cool, but I just felt like their alts weren't as, it didn't match my playstyle. So the Duchess, like, has the one alt where it replays the recent damage that was dealt to the enemy. So if your team just does all of their like super alts, and then you do your ult, you'll replay the damage that those alts did to the enemy, and like just like decimates. So really, really cool. And then the second alt, that takes a little bit longer to build up because it builds up with successive hits to enemies, and it slowly builds your bar up, is the ability to go invisible. And what's great is it's not like what's that spell called that makes you invisible in all the Souls games? It's not like that, where enemies can still kind of detect you. It makes you completely invisible, so they do not aggro to you whatsoever. So you can do that ability, and then you can just like go ham on the damage. And especially if you have a weapon that does a proc, so like a bleed weapon or a frost weapon, you can just go nuts with that ability and build up a proc and do some mega damage while your teammates are like healing or doing whatever. You can also use it if your teammates have been taken down and you need to heal them or revive them. You can just do that ability, and then none of the enemies will aggro to you while you're trying to revive your teammate. So really, really cool. I just found that gameplay worked for me, and I loved her movement and being able to dodge things just really efficiently. The performance. So a lot of people have been talking about like the performance on PS5, and they were like, yeah, the frame rate was terrible, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, bro, like, the PS5 version has never run at a lock 60. I know. Like, that's a From Software L, in my opinion. It doesn't run at a lock 60. It never has. Like, have you played the DLC on console? Like, there are definitely frame dips where it shits the bed at points. Nightreign was the exact same. It was no different. So there were definitely points. I did a little test. I'll show it here, where my frame rate dipped into like the 40s. So definitely for PS5 owners, even PS5 Pro owners, as Digital Foundry has pointed out, if you want the game to run at a solid 60, just run the PS4 version. And I know I'm not making an excuse. I think that's bullshit, especially after this much time and money that From Software and Bandai Namco have generated over the sales of Elden Ring. I think it's inexcusable that they haven't fixed the frame pacing issues in the code, because what's funny is Armored Core 6 built off the same Dandelion engine that From Software uses, and it runs flawless. It runs at 120 FPS on PC, and it runs super solid on console as well. So I know they know how to do it. I just don't know why they haven't done it to the Elden Ring code. So shame. Another thing that I did notice as well, and it could just be, again, because like it's still a work in progress, and they're probably working on polish by now. I found that some of the textures, especially for rocks, like weren't loading in properly. So they would be really low poly textures a lot of the time. So I don't know if that's because you're so much faster in this game, and the game's assets don't have time to load in properly. I don't know what that is. I'm not a developer, but I did find that a lot, especially the rock textures, were not loading in properly. So maybe that's a bug that they'll fix in a future release. But I hear it worked fine on Xbox. So rare Xbox W. Like, if you can count that. I'm gonna wrap this up. My overall experience, this is exactly what I was asking for. I wanted a condensed Elden Ring experience that I could just boot up every now and then, do a quick 30 to 40 minute playthrough, and then feel like I'm getting a lot of the content that I'd want to get in a short session like that. Whereas if you just play the base game, you start a new playthrough, even if you're hyper efficient and you know all the speedrun routes, like a lot of the times 30-40 minutes, like you're getting past Renala and maybe you get to Radon. Like, I don't know, like you get tired of that same first section of Elden Ring, playing it over again when you have that itch to play certain parts of it. So I think this is a really cool thing for that type of player who is just looking for that condensed experience of the game. Yeah, and if you have people that like Elden Ring and you can pair up with, it's just such a good time. Like, if you can coordinate with them, especially on voice chat or something, you will have a wicked kick-ass time. I'm really excited for the curveballs that they throw us. We know that the Nameless King is going to be in it. Who knows who else are going to throw in there? Some people are saying Sekiro bosses. I don't think they will, because Sekiro was published by Activision, so I don't know if that plays nicely. But you could definitely expect previous Dark Souls bosses from the Dark Souls series, so 1, 2, and 3, and you can probably expect some like Elden Ring stuff. And they're going to add some new bosses like they did for the third boss of this network test. I had a fantastic time. All of the people that are saying that they're worried about the content that's going to be in the game, or they didn't like it, they're not From Software fans. I'm sorry. Like I mentioned before, Luke Stevens makes fantastic, like S tier content. Like, he is a great he's a great YouTuber. I love a lot of his content, but he's just out of his wheelhouse when he's talking about Elden Ring or like From Software games. They're not the types of games that he plays, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just find that none of his opinions really hold water, because he's not a subject matter expert in the From Software games. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like a lot of the stuff that he's spreading is just like, that's fine if you didn't like it, but you weren't playing the game properly. You weren't using the mechanics that you were intended to use, especially with the recluse player and like gaining back your FP. And don't fault the game for you not learning the mechanics. And I'm sure I could take the same feedback for a lot of the games that I say I don't like, but I just want to say he makes fantastic content. And a lot of his opinions are just like spot on, but his opinion on Elden Ring and Elden Ring Nightreign, I just find just are not good. Definitely check this out if you love From Software games and you're looking for something that's fast paced, a little bit more condensed, and yeah, it's gonna be a kick-ass time.